summer camp when I was a kid, and then I took ceramics in high school, and I had a wonderful teacher. And then when I went to college, my art program had a really strong ceramics program, focused more on sculpture, less on pottery, and I just got hooked. I was in there all the time. It's all about low fire, color, painterly ceramics, and I just knew that that was my, where I needed to be. Then I just decided to pursue it. I stayed in school, went to grad school, and had the bug ever since. Yeah. So my piece in this show is called Accumulated View, and it's part of a series that I've worked on where I take walks through San Francisco and Oakland, where I've lived for the last 15 years, and I do sketches and photography based on all the little details that I see along the way. And then I build these assembled pieces based on all those little experiences that I have. And so it's abstracted, but I do printed imagery, I do drawings, carvings in the piece. So it's a assemblage of all the different details that I discover.
My name is Bill Abright. I got started in clay at San Joaquin Delta College with Bruce Duke. I was going to be a painter and took a ceramic class in my last semester of ceramics and got totally hooked. Got stuck in the mud, you might say. I retired in June from teaching ceramics for 40 years. The piece in this exhibit is named Carbon, and it's a figurative piece. It's very dark and shadowy with many, many containers and many, many faces. Carbon is the most plentiful element on Earth. It's important to potters in our reduction process for developing beautiful glazes, but it's also the most common element on the planet, of which we have great pleasure in things made of carbon, like diamonds and jewelry and graphite mountain bikes and carbon fiber mountain bikes. And it's also the curse of our existence because we have a high carbon pollution problem in the world as well. So many things wrapped into that piece, very much like so many things wrapped into me. All of my pieces are self-portraits on some level, and this one is as well.
My name is Claudia Tarantino, and I first discovered clay at my dining room table where my mother used to work in porcelain and china paint, but I started working in clay for myself in college. And I was a production potter for a lot of years and then started working in porcelain, and now I do porcelain still life, which is really inspired by my own family memories, my childhood, my extended Italian family. The piece in the show is called Beach Play. It's a little kid's beach pail with a beach bag and shells, and it really is about the time I spent as a kid on the beach discovering.
My name is Shani Cruces. I got into clay my freshman year of college because I couldn't get into a painting class. So I took a clay class, and all the anxiety of that blank canvas just went away with clay. And ever since then, I've been just fighting to get back. I taught high school for many years, taught English, and thought I would have time to do my art after school and, during the summers. And I ended up canning that idea and going back into art, and now I have a master's degree and I teach at San Joaquin Delta College in their ceramics program. So the piece accumulations, my work really centers around this idea of the collected object and how, I moved probably like 12 times by the time I graduated high school. So the ritual of like taking an object and packing it up and putting it in a box and then bringing it to your new home, it's really those objects that make a home, and those objects are stand-ins for people that you might have lost, or people that, were your friends in that town and they gave you something as you left. And, so I'm really obsessed with these objects and how these objects are stand-ins for people. So what I do is I go to places like thrift stores and resale shops, and I collect other people's older collections, and I recollect it, then I make molds out of them. And then I can create them in perpetuity. So I love this idea of this weighty accumulation of things where it's like, it's not just an object. Objects are so easy to discard, and we live in that throwaway kind of society, but what about the things that we really collect, those things that really mean something? So that's what the piece in general is about.
My name is Brian Yerian, and I have been working in clay for about 17 years. And the first time I was introduced to clay was through Humboldt State University. Took a beginning ceramics class. I really enjoy the freedom that clay has. You can do just about anything in clay. You can make it look like anything. And you can sculpt just about anything. So the freedom of expression in the material is what I really enjoy. About the piece, the title is called Next Day, and that's something that my son uses for tomorrow. He's 3 years old, and the piece is about death and about the idea of that death is not the end, but it's the beginning. And so there's 2 tarot cards. There's a white rose tarot card and there's a black rose tarot card, and the piece has the white rose on top of it. And so it's about that death is not the end, but it's about a change, just a change about something moving forward. So.
My name is Jetty O'Rourke Eubner, and I started in clay at San Jose State. I moved out to the country near Yosemite National Park. We planted a garden, built a dome, and worked in clay for about 45 years. The piece that I have in the show is called She's Complicated. It's a torso that I made in honor of my sister-in-law who died of breast cancer, and that's how I started with the torsos, and I've made several in different ways. This one is a Zentangle.
My name's Gail Ritchie, and I got involved in ceramics 40 some odd years ago. My first class was at a community college, although I did a little bit in a basic art class in high school. But it was one of those things where I was interested in studying biology and took a ceramics class and took a right turn or a left turn there and never turned back. But I think maybe the biology contributed to the imagery over the years, because I'm basically an environmentalist, and my work I think speaks to that. I'm especially interested in birds, been a bird watcher for a long time, so even if I try to make something else, it comes out looking like a bird. And I've taught ceramics for a long time, and it still is intriguing to me. There are still challenges, and you know, I look at young students and I get excited every time they pick up clay and start an adventure with it. So still makes me very happy to do ceramics. The particular piece that I have is called Blue Willow, and it's a small chair piece that has blue willow design painted on it, and there's a blue bird and willows, like pussy willows. And the chair is a metaphor for just a resting place. I've done a series of chairs recently, and they usually have a bird. Well, they all have a bird, and they have some environmental elements along with decorative surfaces. And for me, they're little places where wild things can just, fleeting wild things like birds can stop and take a rest. So that's the basis of this piece.
I'm Lee Cavaljan from Sacramento, California, and I came to clay through watching some of my students make clay pieces as I was trying to teach them biology. And I decided maybe I could make clay pieces too. So that was a very long time ago, probably 40, 50 years ago. So I've been enamored with clay ever since, become an addiction, so to speak. And this particular piece was a challenge to use clay that didn't need to be colored with glazes because it had color itself. So in the firing process, a beautiful brown kind of milk chocolate color would develop. And so I thought that looks pretty good, but I wanted to add a little color to it anyway. So the inside edges of the cutouts in the walls have been stained with orange, shades of oranges in order to enhance the piece a little bit.
Hi, my name's Kimberly Cook. I started working in clay about 15 years ago, but I think my interest kind of came from watching a great aunt of mine in Ohio as a child. She had her own clay studio, and I used to love to go in there and just check everything out. And, she had all the, decals and clay and just a whole shop, and I used to love going in there. So I think that was somehow set in my mind early on. I decided to get an MFA around 2004, and I studied clay at San Jose State University. A lot of my work is autobiographical, or at least people read it that way, but it's not necessarily just about me. I like people to get their own, or have their own interpretation of it. I like to use children in my work and also animals because I think they show a certain amount of vulnerability that we can all relate to. And I like to depict these situations where maybe something that looks beautiful from afar, but then you go up closer and you see that there's something wrong or something a little bit off. And I think that makes the work more interesting.
I got into ceramics probably when I was a kid playing in the mud, truthfully, and that desire to have that tactile quality never went away. In my early 30s, I saw a workshop with Don Wrights, and he talked about how he just did what he loved, and I went back to what I loved. So I went to grad school, and that's kind of how I got into ceramics. The piece is about the drought in California. It's made out of porcelain. It's supposed to be about the preciousness of water and the preciousness of porcelain. The piece has gold leaf in it, talking about dealing with greed and how that affects our natural resources.
How I got into clay? I got into clay back in the dark ages, Sacramento City College, Dr. Beverly Pierce, making pots. And it was never a serious thing for me. It was something that I would go to when other things weren't working well. And about 15 years ago, I was a painter, and the muse turned her back on me. Just, we're not doing that anymore. And I went to make some more pots so I could feel like I was an artist again. And it got away from me, as they say, and it went into figurative works. And then I discovered paper clay. And things really got crazy, and I found that I could do things that you couldn't do with regular clay, and I've just been pushing that ever since. See where it goes. Technically, she's a marvel because she's all slabs, and getting them to come together in a very artful way was a huge success for me. She has a face like a bird, which surprised me. You know how clay sometimes just, what are you doing here? I put a beak on her, and sometimes I'm often surprised what comes up. She has something to do with, she's the keeper of ideas. The birds are these ideas that come to her, and she keeps them. And occasionally she hands one out to me, and I get to use it. But that's who she is, and my nemesis and my muse.
I got into ceramics in high school. Although I've always, since I was a little boy, I've been sculpting and drawing. But my high school teacher is what really helped influence me and guide me in the direction of ceramics. This is a piece I did about a rabbit. It was for a rabbit-themed show. And everyone was choosing to do rabbit sculptures based on various themes. A rabbit can be, a symbol of luck, a symbol of fertility, and I kind of chose to represent the rabbit as a symbol of death, because growing up in the suburbs of Chicago, I would often see rabbits dead on the ground as roadkill, and it just kind of made me think about rabbits and how they were built, how they were fleet-footed, and how they were meant to escape danger, and I kind of wanted to display that, but then also not just focus on death, but include an aspect of life too. So I painted a painting of foliage, of very lush foliage on the surface to kind of balance that a little bit, and that was the idea. Now I've also wanted to find a way to incorporate my drawing into ceramics as well, and I thought this was kind of like a successful attempt to do that after some unsuccessful attempts in the past, but yeah.